CWPA Remote.
Hi, I'm Ed Hawes, Director of Communications for the Collegiate Water Polo Association. And today we're talking to Joe Tristan, head men's and women's water polo coach at Penn State Behrend. Start off with the obvious question. You coach both the men's and the women's program at Penn State Behrend. The men's team competes in the MPSF, the women's team competes in the CWPA. How do you handle coaching two genders, and what advice would you provide to other coaches who are coaching two programs with a men's team and a women's team?
One of the first things that when I got here, it was a learning experience for, in my case, because it wasn't just two genders. It was men's and women's water polo and men's and women's swimming. So there was a huge overlap in some of that respect. And one of the things that I learned, and I had to learn it the hard way a little bit, was take one thing at a time. When I was doing that, my first couple years, I tried to do water polo swimming and men's water polo swimming and women's water polo all at the same time. And I was beating myself up. I was running into walls, and I just was like, what's going on? And I finally figured out that I just need to take it one step at a time. I need to take men's water polo is as it is, swimming is as it is, and women's water polo. And that helped out a ton. It made a huge difference because even though I still had focus in swimming and women's water polo, I was able to, my focus stuck with more on the men when it was men's season. And I was able to handle and deal with things on the women's side when they came up, and whatnot. This year was my first year that I wasn't doing swimming. So for 16 years, I did that. And I'll tell you, I'm not gonna lie, the first couple of years were rough in that respect of trying to balance all of those things, including my teaching schedule. I also teach here at Penn State Behrend. So trying to balance all of that. And once I figured out how, and came up with my own little way to just focus on one thing at a time, it made things a lot easier. And especially not only for me mentally and physically, but also emotionally. So when the women's this year, after 16 years of doing that, this was my first year of not doing swimming. So I had that little bit of a break. So then now I was able to balance that aspect of men's water polo. I can focus on men's water polo, still kind of keeping that aspect of I'll deal with the women's water polo side as it comes up. But, in the back end, I can still, but on my first priority, men's water polo. Then when I was not in practices or whatnot, I could focus on my teaching schedule and then get into the women's side of things. The recruiting is always going to be the recruiting. You have to do both. There's no way around it. There's no way to separate those. You have to, kind of balance that as best you can. But it was just one of those, my first thing would be for any new coach that's going to do both. Don't try to do two things at once. Focus on one. And as your priority when you're in that season. And then when you're in women's season, focus on the women. And that way the men, that's where your captains come in. I utilized my captains a ton over the last 17 years to help with the off season stuff, and whatnot. So utilizing your leadership, your student leadership, your captains, and your seniors in general to help with that aspect when you're not in season.
All right. You brought up recruiting. Give me your sales pitch for Penn State Behrend, both as an academic school, but also for a place to play varsity water polo.
Well, the first thing is that, we are Penn State. We're a Penn State institution. We're Penn State University. And in that respect is we offer one of the best educations in the country, if not the world. And, if you're looking for in engineering or business, we are one of the best schools in the country in that respect. And I have student athletes to prove that where they have gone and what they are doing, in that respect. So in the aspect of the academic side, Penn State Behrend, can put you in so many different directions in many different facets of business or starting your own business and whatnot, PhD candidates and things like that.
Mhm.
As a water polo school, it's great because one of the best aspects of being part of Penn State Behrend and an athlete at Penn State Behrend is, one, as a water polo player, you're going to get an opportunity to play and get minutes in the water. Number two, you know, we we offer many different kind of things once you're here on campus as an athlete, with different types of things, with whether it be priority registration or just general things within the athletic department, some all the little clothing things that you can get for and stuff like that. But we have a great facility that that I'm very proud of and whatnot, and it gives an athlete an opportunity to be able to say, hey, on the men's side, I'm going to play some of the best teams in the country. On the women's side, we have an opportunity to vie for a championship, or trying to make it to the national championships and whatnot. On the men's side, we still have that same aspect as well. So we kind of get the best of both worlds. On the men's side, they get to play some Olympians on one end, but also have an opportunity to play for a national championship on the D3 level. On the women's side, we have that opportunity of playing at the Division III level for a national championship and whatnot.
All right, you brought up the D3s. The CWPA Division III conference was created a number of years ago, and there's been runs of champions. Grove City won for a number of years, then Connecticut College, and now McAllister. You guys have been in the mix a lot of those years, most of those years. What are your plans and long-range goals for the water polo program at Penn State Behrend, and where do you see it going over the next 5 to 10 years?
By the long, obviously the obvious goal is to win the championship, to try and, whether it be a run like those great schools, Grove City, McAllister, and Connecticut, or it be just one championship, but just winning the championship is something that is always a goal every year. We've come close. We've had some great years, and we've had some great athletes come through. The goal, as we go through every year by year, it's trying to bring in some great athletes and great students. That's one of the biggest components that we look at is to bring in those those student athletes that are strong, not only in the water but also in the classroom. And our students have done a great job. Our women have done such an awesome job in the classroom, and our men have done as well. So we are looking in that direction. The goal, my goal in the next 2 to 3 years is to try and make it to the national championship. And I think we have a good crew of freshmen coming in, as well as our returning crew coming in, that I think we have a shot at that. There's a lot of tweaking, little things that have to get done, but those are the things that we're looking for. Over the next 5 to 10 years, my hope is that we can, have a couple championships under our belt. If not a championship, maybe, we make it to the national championships. That's in and of itself is a goal, just to make it there. The top 2 teams get to go. So we may not win the championship, but you know what? We still achieve a goal by going to the national championships and playing for that national championship and whatnot. So those are the goals as we go through the next, few years and whatnot.
All right. I'll end it with one final question. You've been coaching for a pretty long time now. What would one thing be that you know now that you didn't know when you started, that you wish you had known when you were a young coach?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess probably when I walked in, I had this mentality. I came from a Division I swimming program. I started, I was, and I watched a lot of Division I sports in my, as I was getting older. And I guess one of the things that that made it also difficult when I first got here was, Division III is a different beast in and of itself. and you can't walk in and say and treat it like a Division I program. Just like you can't walk, if you're an Olympic coach, you can't walk into a Division I program and expect to treat it like an Olympic year, every year. So, that's probably one thing I wish I would have known then. And I learned that a few years after I arrived was, division, in the aspect of the Division III world, there are a lot more different rules as well as, things like that. But the athlete and experience is a different aspect in the Division III world than it is in the Division I world. And you can't change that. And I don't know if I was trying to change it, but it was one of those that I didn't want to, change. And I didn't want to change myself. After a few years, I made that adjustment and I transitioned into, hey, we're in a Division III program, and athletes, as much as they are willing to work hard and practice and do all these great things, there is a different component that is involved with this athlete as they move forward. So that's kind of where I think that's where we've started to make the changes and making some good runs, and we've had some much better programs over the years. Was after I made that little transition of, hey, let's make this, and our men have done some great things, our women have been in the mix on many times, and so we've done a lot of great things in that respect. So once I made that change, it was a lot easier.
All right, we'll end it there. Coach Tristan, thank you for doing this for us. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Ed. Have a great day.
You too.